はい、それでは皆さん、こんにちは。SDGs と道徳の第何回ですか？ 6 回ですかね。本日は、ナイジェリアの鬼石先生にお越しいただいて特別講演をしていただきたいと思います。最初に、鬼石先生について、皆さんにご紹介をしたいと思います。副学長の堀内先生から、今違うんですか？学長補佐の堀内先生から、大西先生についてご紹介いただきたいと思います。よろしくお願いします。
はい、ありがとうございます。ここにもあったね。いいですか、これで。はい、皆さん、こんにちは。はい。ですね、簡単に、鬼石先生の紹介をさせていただきます。鬼石って言うと、なんか、大西さんみたいですけど、鬼石ですからね、2の後伸ばすんですね。で、私はですね、経済学部で教えてるんですけども、財団、モラルジー道徳教育財団の方の国際部長もやっているんですね。モラルジーとの関係でも、鬼石先生は非常に、私どもの学園と関係があります。で、1967年にナイジェリアで生まれたんですね。この年代を覚えておいてください。1967年。で、2018年にエボニー州立大学でですね、博士号、経済学の博士号を取られました。で、現職を紹介させていただきますと、2016年からチーフエコノミスト、これは日本国ナイジェリア商工会議所ですね。それから2016年からエヌグ州立科学技術大学の経済学の講師をされています。17年からですね、これは日本のモラロジー道徳教育財団ですけれども、モラロジーインストラクターというして、講義をですね、モラロジーの講義をされています。2022年からはですね、エヌグ州農業開発プログラムのプログラムマネージャーとして活躍をされています。で、2023年から本学の客員教授ということなんですが、ちょっとナイジェリアの事情についてですね、簡単に話をさせていただきます。皆さんナイジェリアってどこにあるかわかりますか？アフリカのどこかわかりますか？中央の西の方なんです。こうなってますよね。こうなってますよね。この辺りにあるんです。ちょっとわかりにくいかと思いますけども、ナイジェリア連邦共和国はですね、アフリカ大陸の中西部に位置し、国土の西側はですね、ベナン、北の方にはニジェール、これはもう砂漠地帯ですね。で、東側はチャド。で、南東はですね、カメルーンですよね。サッカーで有名ですよね。で、南の方は海ですから、ギニア湾からですね、南大西洋がこう広がっている国です。人口というか、面積は日本の 2.5 倍、人口は日本の 1.8 倍ということです。アフリカでもですね、有数の人口の多い国であって、アフリカの優等生、西アフリカの優等生かな、佐藤先生、いいですよね、と呼ばれています。で、多民族多宗教国家なんですね。ナイジェリアの北西の方にはですね、イスラム教徒が大半を占めている間違えた。ハウサ族ですね。で、西部の方はですね、イスラム教とキリスト教徒が混在するヨルバ族。から南東部、これが大西先生の住んでいらっしゃるところです。イボ族なんですけども、キリスト教徒が主体のイボ族の三大民族の他にですね、多数の少数民族が暮らしています。で、南東部のイボ族はイギリス植民地時代ですね、比較的教育レベル高かったんですよね。ですから、下級官僚とかですね、軍人とか豪商を輩出しています。で、ここなんですね。1967年から70年にかけて、イボ族が居住する南東部地域がビアフラ共和国。これはビアフラ戦争って呼ばれたんですけど、独立運動があったんですね。で、首都がエヌグです。で、ナイジェリア連邦政府軍との間でですね、内戦が勃発しました。1968年、生まれられて1年後ですよね。連邦政府軍がビアフラ共和国を包囲して、食料、物資供給を遮断したんですね。兵糧攻めですよね。150万人近い餓死者が出たと言われています。で、ナイジェリアにはですね、推定14,310のキリスト教会と3,380のモスクがあります。で、人口のちょうど比率で考えますとですね、キリスト教徒が45%、 イスラム教徒が 45%、残りがですね、伝統的な部族宗教、信仰を信じる、信者 10% ということで、その意味でですね、ナイジェリアで起きる内戦というのは、キリスト教のイボ族とイスラム教徒のハウサ族との民族間、宗教間の紛争だということなんですね。で、ちょうど鬼西先生が生まれられた時に、戦争というか、独立戦争が始まったわけですよね。で、そのビアフラ戦争、独立戦争っていうのが勃発した1967年なんですけど、ちょうど政府の首都のエヌグに住んでいらしたんですね。で、お父さんお母さんが子供が生まれたばかりですから心配ですから、ちょっと離れたところにある祖父ですね、州長なんです。おじいさんは州長されてたんですね。で、そこに疎開というか、そこに身を寄せると。もし、エヌグに残っていたら、おそらく餓死していたかもしれない。そういう境遇なんですね。で、おじいさんの昔からの小さい頃からですね、村人じゃないですね、部族の人たちに対する対応を見て、あ、この人は素晴らしいなと、本当に民のためにですね、一生懸命身を粉にして仕事してるなっていうのを憧れを感じます。そしてエヌグに戻ってももう町は荒廃してますから何もできないので、小学校中学校ぐらいからですね、ブラジルに渡るんです。もし宗主国のイギリスに渡っていたら今の先生はいらっしゃらないし、モラルジー、レイタク大学とも関係はできなかったかもしれません。ブラジルに渡るんですね。で、その道すがら考えたことは、どうして部族間の紛争、宗教間の紛争があるんだろうと。平和な世界を作って、ですね、おじいさんのように、部族のために働きたいと。つまりお父さんも酋長で、ご本人もプリンスですね、いわゆる。なんですね。そういう家柄の方です。で、ブラジルに行ってですね、道徳科学を勉強している日系ブラジル人と出会います。で、それが契機でですね、モラルジーを勉強されるようになったんですね。で、宗教、確かに宗教素晴らしいんですけれども、どうしても絶対的なものをそれぞれが主張しますから、ぶつかってしまうんですよね。なので、宗教では世界の平和は無理だと、道徳がいいということを確信されて、ずっと今まで30年間、研究をされてきました。そういう方でいらっしゃいます。ということで、Can I finish it? Okay. Thank you. それではですね、私が言っていいんでしょうかね。じゃあどうぞご登壇いただければと思います。It's your turn.
Wow, thank you very much, Professor Horichi, for introducing me to the students. How many of you have met a Nigerian before? Raise up your hand.
堀内先生、ご紹介ありがとうございます。私、今日通訳務めます佐藤と申します。これまでにナイジェリアの人とお会いしたことあるっていう方いらっしゃいますか？手を挙げてみてください。
Oh, just one person. Okay, thank you. So, nice to meet you. I'm happy to be with you this afternoon.
ありがとうございます。一人いらっしゃいましたね。はじめまして。今日皆さんにお会いできて光栄です。
I think I feel somewhat emotional when Professor Horichi was talking about me. Of course, I cannot understand everything, but I felt that he was just telling the story of my life. Thank you, Professor, for introducing me to the students.
堀内先生、ありがとうございます。全部はわからないですけども、私の生涯について語っていてくださって、ちょっと感情的な部分もありまして、とても嬉しく思います。
This lecture is the third lecture I'm giving for the past few days in the campus. On Tuesday, I had a lecture on population, and yesterday I had a lecture on economic relationship between Japan and Africa. So today we are talking about sustainable development and morality, looking at the expectation of the young people, because sustainable development is talking about future. And I think the focus is on young people, and that is going to be the focus of our discussion today.
これまでに私、今回渡航してきて、3回目お話しするんですけど、1回目は人口についてお話しして、2回目は経済についてお話ししました。で、今日は SDGs に話して、で、特別に感情としては皆さん、若い世代に向けてメッセージを発したいなというふうに思っています。
So our discussion today, I have developed an outline which we are going to look at. The first thing, of course, the introduction of sustainable development and morality. So we're looking at how sustainable development relates with moral thinking. And from studies, so many schools of thought think that sustainable development emanated from moral thinking. Then we're also going to look at why morality matters in sustainable development, and also the unique position of the young people when you talk about morality and when you talk about sustainable development. Then our major discussion is going to be about the moral expectation of the young people. So, because if sustainable development goals of United Nations is going to work, the young people must play a very important role. So our major discussion will be on how you, as a citizen, as a global citizen, the impact you can make to make a sustainable development a successful project.
今日はまず SDGs についてお話しして、でその後ですね、倫理、モラルというものと SDGs の関係について話したいと思います。特にどのようにしてこのモラル、倫理というものが SDGs にとって大事かということをお話ししたいと思います。で、やっぱりメインになるのは皆さんと若い世代に向けた話ということになります。
On introduction, of course, many of you must have read about the Sustainable Development Goal. It's about 17 items captured in Sustainable Development. So it's a universal agenda. That means the nations and the citizens are part of it. And the aim of sustainable development, of course, one is about eradication of poverty. So it is a moral obligation that humanity must eradicate poverty. Of course, there are other, the Sustainable Development 5, which is talking about gender equality. There's also about education. There's also about certain issue of peace, justice. Because if we don't have peace, any other thing cannot be successful. So I would like you to explore, to look at these 17 goals and see how important they are and why it is a universal agenda. Then, and you can see that even though we have this universal agenda, there's a need for moral courage. There's a need for using moral instinct to achieve them. Because we know in the United Nations, so many programs like SDG have been established. You know about Millennium Development Goals. You know about some others goals. So these Sustainable Development Goals, it is about you. It is about me. It is about the future. It is about the generation to come. So that's why you, as a young person, you have to think critically on how to be part of this achieving sustainable development goal because of the challenges we have in the world today. So, in one of the readings, said, in an increasing chaotic world where ethical standards are often compromised, young people face the dual challenge of navigating uncertainty while acting as a moral agent of sustainable change. Moral agent means it means about individual action. It means about behavior. It means about attitude. So that's why morality is a very important instrument to achieve a sustainable development goal. So the question is how moral responsibility can guide young people in realizing sustainable development goals within society struggling with corruption, violence, and moral decency. Of course, so many scholars have researched into this, looking at the relationship between morality and sustainable development goal and how important morality is and how the instrument of morality should be used to achieve sustainable development goal. I don't know. How are you translating? Will you continue or should I keep talking?
Okay, I'll translate the first.
Yeah, so the introduction to one of the academia, VEMA, in 2019, argues that sustainable without ethics becomes an empty pursuit. Morality provides the compass that directs development towards fairness, responsibility, and long-term goal. So these are the introduction which I would like you to use your time to research more about the importance of sustainable development goal and the impact, the morality, which is you, which is your character, which is your action, which is your thinking, your behavior, can play to make sustainable development goal a success.
モラリティと SDGs の関係についてですけども、SDGs 皆さんご存知の通り、持続可能な開発目標として、国連が定めた目標です。で、これというのは、普遍的な行動指針ね、ユニバーサルアジェンダとして採択されたんですけど、これの実現、具体的には貧困の根絶だったり、環境の保護、平和と正義の実現、こういったことを達成するためには、普遍的なゴールを達成するツールとして、このモラリティというのが非常に大事になってきます。で、このモラリティというのは、私の問題でもあるし、あなたの問題である。皆さん自身が考えて行動する。それを示す大きな指針となってくれています。で、この講義ですけども、このモラリティというのがどのように大事かということをこれから話していきたいというふうに思っています。
So we're now moving to the second item on the outline, which has to do with the foundation, moral foundation of sustainable development goals. So it's trying to tell you that the SDG were conceived as a moral response to global injustice. So it is like a solution. That is the injustice which has always been a part of human nature. When Professor Horichi was introducing me, he talked about civil war in my country. He talked about when I was born. So then Nigeria was just about 6 years of independence, and we have a civil war. And about 2 million people died, and majority are children. So, and if you look at the history and discover the parts the global community played, you can imagine how can the world looking a new nation in crisis. The Russia were supplying ammunition to Nigerian government. The British were supplying ammunition to Nigerian government. The Americans were neutral, but they didn't play any significant part. It was France, which was a little bit tried to help, but there was a blockage. And what Nigerian government used then was using hunger as an instrument of war. So, because Nigerian government didn't have enough weapon to fight Biafra, but so we block everywhere, so people will die. So these are the history of human nature. And now, in so many countries of the world, we have war going on. We have oppression, leaders oppressing their citizens. We have so many things that you can't imagine. How can a modern human think in this way? So development goals, which is sustainable. Now, look at our environment. It's a critical situation whereby we don't know what is going to happen what the next generation is going to meet. Okay, we can be successful, we live, we die, and we are preparing for the next generation. without thinking critically our action now, which is going to affect them. So that is the morality is a foundation of sustainable development. So those who formulated sustainable, they were thinking morally on how to use morality to solve the global problem. So that means each goal in the social and the sustainable has a part to play. It is like an instrument that can solve the problem. It's a solution. So of course, I talk about the issue of poverty. It's a global problem because if you look at the statistics, you can see that the percentage of people that not having access to food in the world today, or not having enough food. So as a human being, in this modern human being, which we feel we are smarter than a generation before us. So can you imagine that people are hungry while we have what it takes to provide food for the world? So the same thing to other goals. So this foundation means that each goal, whether eliminating poverty, achieving gender equality, or promoting peace and justice, is rooted in ethical obligation towards human welfare and planetary stewardship. So that means it's rooted on ethical obligation of every citizen, of the global citizen, to be conscious of that. So Guerra, who is one of the United Nations leaders, he said, sustainable development goal cannot be separated from moral reasoning. It is a question of what is good for people and the planet. So, because if we don't think about what is good for us as people, and we're not thinking about what is good for the planet, then we might have challenge of living in a planet where our life is not sustainable, because global warming is a serious problem. And everyone, every country must be thinking critically about it. So economic growth without ethical constraints often lead to exploitation, environmental harm, and social inequality. So in economies, there are so much concern about economic growth. And in economic growth, as an economist, there's difference between economic growth and economic development. In economic growth is all about increasing the gross domestic product, increasing the quantity of wealth. In development, you're looking at those critical areas like education, you're looking at the life expectancy, you're looking at other indicators which you used to weigh how important or how sustainable such economy is growing. Because if you're only thinking about growth without thinking about such indicators, because in some countries today, the economic growth does not match the well-being of the citizen. So these are things we're looking at, that human beings, it is a time we start applying our moral reasoning in whatever we do. So therefore, morality functions as a soul of sustainability. And that's why when I look at this, and I remember the founder of this school, Dr. Chikore Hiroike, almost 100 years ago, was talking about this. There's nothing we can achieve without morality. That moral should be foundation of our aspiration. Moral should be the foundation of whatever we want to do. So Dr. Chikore Hiroike is a man who saw before us. He lived almost more than a century, but he has seen that the importance of morality. So the moral function as a soul of sustainability, ensuring that progress respects both human dignity and the ecological integrities. So you can go ahead.
いっぱいお話しいただいたので、意訳になってしまいますけれども、やはりモラリティ、その道徳というのは SDGs を実現する基盤だと いうお話ですね。で、具体的に、例えばその目標の中の貧困撲滅、それからジェンダー平等、平和の正義の推進、こういった目標はありますけれども、こういったことを実現するためにやっぱり道徳、これが非常に大事だというふうに考えています。例えばですね、堀内先生が先にご紹介いただいた、私が生まれた年、これというのはナイジェリアが独立して6年後だったんですけれども、この時ですね、大きな内戦が起こって、貧困というのが国中に広がりました。当時はこの貧困というのが一つですね、この紛争の中の大きな問題で、この貧困を解決するというのが一つの大きなこの内戦の武器になる、ツールになるというような時代がありました。で、こういったことを考えても、やっぱりこの、モラリティというのが非常に大事だということになっています。で、例えば現代だったら、このロシアとウクライナの戦争、で、イギリスの、ナイジェリアはイギリスの植民地でしたので、イギリスによる統治だったり、アメリカ、そしてフランスなど多くの国々が介入をしたりしますけれども、こういったことというのは、やはりこの根本的なこの道徳というものを脅かす。そして、この SDGs、この持続可能な発展ということの障害になってきている。で、例えば、この飢餓とかね、あとはこの食料へアクセスできないということを皆さんちょっとイメージしてみてください。で、この食料にアクセスできないというのは、やはりこの持続可能発展以前にですね、この人々の生活を脅かして、この倫理的な義務、これをこう反するというようなことがあるというふうに言っています。
So we're moving to the next subtopic, which is I want to convince you today that morality is the core of the sustainable development because they are interdependence. Because you cannot achieve sustainable development without morality. And according to Togaira, in a paper published 2022, he said that he emphasized the ethical leadership. Just when I talk about how can someone as a president, probably a prime minister of Japan, and there's a war in one country, and you start supplying ammunition so that they will kill themselves. So I think in the modern society, we should be thinking how we bring peace so that the causes of war, which in the Charter of United Nations is from the brain or heart of men. So we should be agents of peace. So that is, if we want to achieve sustainable development, of course, not only talking about the economic approach, governance approach on environmental management, but let's talk about how ethical leadership, so the decisions of a leader in a small institution or even in a family or in a nation, then you talk of global, the ethical leadership is the key that connects morality to be able to achieve sustainable development. So there's other scholars, Verma, who highlight the ethical dimension of environmental protection. It is something that it is all about you, because if we don't protect our environment, the effect we are going to suffer it. Because if the global warming continue, which is evidence in every day we are seeing it, then we are suffering it. So it becomes issue of personal motive to protect environments. That is action. We have to take those actions both individually and collectively. So the notion aligns with intergenerational justice. Because if we want to build a generation which we are hoping to have children, we are hoping to have, we are working to have a family. So if you want to think about those children, you know that your action today is going to reflect in their life. So that is intergenerational justice, is knowing what is right for you now and for the future generation. So that means that the belief that today's action should not compromise the well-being of those yet to born. So hence, is morality ensure that development does not sacrifice long short-term sustainability for short-term gain. We can gain things, we can be happy right now, but what about the future? So these are a discussion showing the interdependence between morality and sustainability, which morality is talking about our action as a human beings. So if we can achieve that sustainability, which is our aspiration. So we have to really find a way to link both.
続いて、この持続可能な開発を中心として、道徳という話をしますと、この道徳に関しては、ガバナンス、それから経済、環境管理とか、そういったものすべてにおいて、この道徳と持続可能性っていうのは相互依存関係にあるというふうにおっしゃっています。でこのグエラですかね、という方がおっしゃるには、誠実、透明性、説明責任に根ざした倫理的なリーダーシップ、エシックリーダーシップが、その他のエコノミック、経済的だったり、ガバナンスのリーダーシップよりも大事で SDGs の実現には不可欠であるというふうに言っています。でこういったことというのは、道徳的な責任で、こういったものが SDGs の中で特にこの公正な経済システム、これを育む上で非常に大事だというふうに言っています。で、さらにですね、こういったことの中で、大西先生が着目されているのは、世代間の正義、インタージェネレーショナルジャスティスという概念です。これは、今日の行動、皆さんの今の行動というのが、将来の幸福ですね、皆さんからもう後の世代とか将来の世代、こういった人々の幸福につながっているんだという考え方ですね。で、したがって、このモラリティ、道徳というのは、短期的な利益だけじゃなくて、利益のためだけじゃなくて、長期的な持続可能性を犠牲にしない。こういうことを考えるための非常に大事なインストゥルメンタル、道具であるというふうに言っています。
Now, it is a question of, do you believe that there is a chaotic world? Do you believe there are problems, moral challenge? I think, I want to find out, those who believe there's a problem, raise up your hand. And if you think there's no challenge to the morality, then you can, just those who believe there's a challenge, a chaotic world, where there's a need for solution, raise up your hands.
Please.
Yes, I want to know those who believe there's a problem, moral problem in the world today.
今日の、you mean about the war, right?
The world.
今日の世界において、倫理的な問題、道徳的な問題があるなって思える方、思っている方、ちょっと手を挙げてくださいます。
Is there a problem? Yes, only one person? Wow, 2, 3. So many people feel there's no problem. So everything is all right. But the truth is that the contemporary society which we live in faces a lot of moral and structural problems. There is. Probably you are so young to identify that, but we are facing a lot of, because the wars we're having all over the world, the economic inequality, the digital misinformation. We are in a digital age and we are having so many challenges which requires moral approach to solve them. So in a word, moral values are frequently overshadowed by political and material interest. We just feel it's not necessary to think about morality. It's not necessary. I mean, it doesn't concern me. So I want us to believe that this problem is something that exists, that requires action. Of course, the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs warns that peace, justice, and strong institutions cannot thrive without moral integrity in governance and citizenship. So whether we believe or not, so many indicators have shown that there are problems and there are a need to also start solving them. So, of course, what it calls is a kind of a global synergy. And that's why Sustainable Development Goal can be a starting point which we can start looking at how to solve all those global problems. So the SDG, therefore, serve not only as a policy objective, but also as a moral compass for humanity, collective conscience. So it's not just it's a policy. We have here so many goals, but we are in a critical period right now that we must think critically, that we must take action, especially the young people, because the future belongs to you. Some of us, we are almost 6 decades in our life, or 7 decades. So you are still in your 20s, so you still have up to even live above the sustainable goal, which ends in 2030.
先ほど皆さんに手を挙げてもらった通りですね、世界というのは、現代社会は戦争だったり、経済格差だったり、デジタル情報の混乱、それから環境悪化、こういった道徳的、構造的な混沌、混乱に直面している世界だと思います。でこうした状況だと、道徳的な価値というのが、頻繁にですね、政治的とか、物質的な利害、これによって、覆い隠されてしまう。で、この国連の経済社会局というところがですね、警告を発していますと。どういうような警告かと言いますと、平和、正義で強固な制度というものは、道徳的、誠実さを欠いた、統治と市民の社会の下では反映しない。ここにやはり道徳的、誠実さ、こういったものの大事さが出てくるわけです。
So now we have come to real action, which we are talking about, the role and obligation of young person. So let me just give you an instance. I met morology when I was 24 years old, and nobody introduced me to morology. I just came across it, and I discovered that this is what I need. And even my friends, they were thinking, this guy, are you crazy? Why people are talking something serious, and you are talking about morality and morology? But then, I don't know, but that is that inspiration that I had that gave me the opportunity to come in contact with this concept. Over the years, I came to realize that it was a very good encounter, because since then, I started changing my view, started changing my relationship, started changing how I approach everything. And I can say it without reservation that it was a very good thing for me, because it helped me to discover who I am. It helped me to discover my moral obligation and challenges. And that's why every day, every year, I come around to study, to research, and that's the opportunity we're here. So you as a young person, young people constitute more than half of the global population, and even greater portion in developing regions, because of course, a society like Japan, the population is decreasing. But in a place like Africa, like 2 days ago, we were talking about population increase, population growth is increasing exponentially. Nobody's thinking about this increase in population. Do we have enough infrastructure to accommodate it? Then what can we do morally to curtail it? So the young people who are the measure in terms of the ratio in population, then represents the energy and the ethics of the future. So if we must be conscious of our future, it must start from the young persons. So the moral expectation placed upon youths in the Sustainable Development Goal includes several dimensions which we are going to be talking about. So the moral role of leaders, of a young person. So Of course, you might say you are too young, but it is a time to start thinking about this. The issue of ethical leadership and integrity. So it's in wherever you are, in whatever you do, even in your student gathering. So the ethical leadership is necessary if we must achieve sustainable development goals. Of course, ethical leadership, we think about the issue of transparency, we think about accountability, we think about trust. Some of those things, we just look at it as a common language. But if we must achieve sustainable development goal, the young people should also be thinking critically about leadership. Start preparing themselves to assume the role of leadership. Thinking about, as a leader, you have to be transparent, you have to be accountable, you have to be trustworthy. So, of course, I listed some of those issue of global citizenship and solidarity. So don't just, I know you people are living in a developed society. So happy, so you have access to everything. So yesterday I was talking about if we must develop a formidable relationship between Africa and Japan, there's need for mutual exchange. So, because really, I know, it's just like when I ask who has ever come in contact with Nigeria or Africa. The truth is that the young people in Japan must be adventurous. You must take courage to explore other culture. Because that's the only way you can understand what other people are passing. And you understand also how comfortable you are. And that's how you appreciate the effort of your forefathers, your ancestors in building a society. So you have to think how you can also help others as well. Of course, it doesn't concern you, but if we don't think solidarity, the human society, the global, looking at the globe as a part of us, because when we talk about environmental challenges, it affects everyone. It doesn't respect border. It doesn't respect distance. And let me just tell you, even though Japan is a very close society where it is not easy to assess, but if we have a strong crisis in Africa today, where people cannot feed, where the leaders cannot take on, don't be surprised, so many young people from Africa, they will find a way to enter Japan. And that is become a challenge. So we should be empathic about what is going on in other society. And we also be issue of tolerance. Is one of the principles of morology, tolerance. So you start learning how to tolerate those who are different from you, who think different from you, empathy, and rights-based thinking. Of course, left in politics, you think about rightists and leftists, but right-based thinking is whereby you are not only thinking about yourself, you are thinking about the next person, you're thinking about the next, what is called in morology, I don't know the terms, the professor can, the trilateral goodness. So whereby you think about next person before you. So, of course, in morology, there are this lifelong learning, which if you have opportunity, since you are in this campus, try to participate in this lifelong learning where you start discovering the importance of applying some of those principles that can help you to improve yourself. So in morology, you talk about developing renunciation of selfishness. Of course, there's no way you can renounce, you can remove that you are what you are, a different entity. But you should try to reduce over dependence, over reliance on you. Because in one of the lectures where we were talking about population, I also talked the story yesterday. We have so many young people thinking that having a family or having children is a burden, that they want to enjoy themselves. So for that reason, I don't want to have a child. Or I want to, how can I pay school fee? How can I do a lot of things? So reducing this kind of thinking, developing benevolence mind, that is love. It is something you start feeling when you change the way you're thinking. That's why issue of positive thinking and negative thinking. So trying to think positively, looking at the future positively. Don't be pessimistic. Don't just feel that everything is going wrong. Because in life, this is how it goes, ups and downs. Nothing is statistics. Nothing is remain the same. So dynamics is something we prepare ourselves. Through lifelong learning, we start seeing things in a different way. So the global citizenship and solidarity is necessary for young people, because thinking globally is a way of solving global problems. Then, of course, I have mentioned the issue of climate and environmental stewardship. So we need to adopt sustainable consumption habits. We should look at how we consume, because our consumption, those things that are affecting the environment, we should reduce it. Like now, they're talking about how to reduce fuel, the fossil fuel, that is to some of other energies, so alternative energies. So don't just look at it as saving money. Look at it as you are doing a very important, you are taking important action to protect the environment. Of course, the innovation, we have to be innovative in our thinking, because I know many people just think nothing will change. There's no hope. So changes is a constant, and no one can stop it. So, of course, I mentioned it earlier, intergenerational justice, which means moral duty. So in morality, there are what is called duty towards self, duty towards society, duty towards the Autolinion, which means the line of succession, that ancestors, those people that contributed in one way or the other to who you are. Well, some of us now, because we are students, we are young, we love our parents, we do everything now. But immediately we start getting money, we forget them. We don't think about that. And it is something I have seen in a civilized society. People don't have affinity. But we in Africa, we still have what is called extended family system, whereby your family is important in your life. And you can't, your parents, they depend on you. They help you to grow. And when you grow, you help them, because they will become weak. So this moral duty, which is a morology, which I will encourage you to start studying. Unique, of course, many of us feel there's no spring being. There's nothing like God. There's nothing like, you are just like here. These are some of the ways you start thinking, because there are power that is more than who you are. So these are some of the, when we talk about climate and civil engagement. Civil engagement is about peace building, trying to see how you can participate in helping the society, your own society first, then you can help other societies. So, and if we can be part of agent of peace in our environment and in the world, then we are playing our part as a young persons. So when we talk about peace building or civil engagement, we're talking about active participation in democratic process. Like many young people, you don't want to participate. Politicians, they are crazy, I don't care. But you have to participate to be able to make a judgment, to contribute in bringing some good people to the the governance. Because if you don't participate, definitely you have no one to blame. So the involvement in community dialogue, which of course you don't have such crisis we have down there in Africa, because in Africa, for instance, in Nigeria, we have more than 300 ethnic groups, 300 cultures, 300 different people. Everything is different, languages. So in such society, the young people will try to do like exchange, something like cultural exchange, so that you can really find a way of relating among young people to dialogue. Because the causes of so many crises is lack of dialogue. When people don't listen to the others, when people don't think the others have rights, when people think that they are superior to others, these are the things that cause infringement, and that is obstruction to dialogue. So promotion of peace, rule of law, and inclusive institution, because institutions is a vital agent to achieve peace. And that's why wherever you are, in whatever you do, you must be participating in voluntary services. Like myself, as I said, I take myself as a morology volunteer. For about 25 years, I've been trying to activate the activities of morology in Nigeria. And many people, I invest, in fact, I spend more than 30% of whatever I'm earning to achieve this, to make sure it works. And many people look at it, you are crazy, because you can use this money for something else. But to me, I think that is institutions, if we could build that, which will help to solve some of the challenges, it will help to create peace. Because when people are knowledgeable, when people reduce that selfishness and start becoming tolerance about their fellow citizens, when people start thinking about compassion, empathy, when people start knowing that we cannot be isolated, that you have to relate with your fellow person, you know. And I think in a modern age, especially at your age right now, many of you must have broken the barrier about racial superiority, because it is now obvious that scientifically there's no superior race, that everyone can cope up as long as they have opportunity. But if you as a young person, you still have this kind of thinking that your race is superior to others, I think you are living in 2 centuries ago. Because scientifically, we, like myself, I graduated from American University, Temple University. And frankly, I was surprised, even at the very adult age, that most people, of course, few Japanese, but mostly Americans, because many of us, when we were growing up, we were looking at America, they are the superior people. They think they are smarter. And in the class, in the subjects, I was doing bad. I was above average. And so many of them, because this kind of thinking, it can be very, many people up to now, because we look at America, just like many Japanese, think that Africa is one country. And you are studying history, and you are studying geography. So it is a time we will start diminishing some of those superior imposition of our mentor, thinking that your race is superior to others. It doesn't exist. It has been proven here and then that we all, as a human beings, that we all have the same characteristics, that what is lacking is opportunity. And you, as a young person living in a civilized society, you must appreciate who you are. You must appreciate that God brought you here in a civilized society where you don't suffer like others, that you have this opportunity to promote global citizenship. That those who don't have this kind of opportunity, that you have part to play. Then, of course, in the digital age, now, this your phone can keep you busy the whole day from morning till night. But if you concentrate on your phone and ignore your family, definitely you are not doing good. You are not doing justice to human relations. And you are not doing justice to yourself. Because there's still need to have that feeling of humanity. There's still need to interact, to learn from each other. Because AI, something very strange, which we must prepare ourselves so that it doesn't control us, that we control the AI. So, as a young person who has so many years and decades to go, if you don't change the way you think, the way you relate with your fellow human being, you'll be causing problem to yourself and you'll be causing problem to the society. I know, I think these are some of the challenge, what I think the expectation of young people. Of course, social entrepreneurship, because as an economist, it is now proven that it is impossible to live in one stream of income. So if you are just thinking that if you graduate, you get a job, you get employed, and that's all, you don't try to create something that can solve the social or global problem, then you are living in the past. So being entrepreneur, developing entrepreneurial spirit, it is a way to live in the modern world. So that is, try to have that entrepreneur. Of course, it requires more than you think, because if you are one of those who think that you don't need to relate with people, you don't need to cooperate with someone, then, but if you think that human being is important in your life, you now start thinking of how you can be entrepreneur-minded, how you can develop a product that can solve one of the social problems, that can solve one of the global problems. So having innovative and social entrepreneur as a part of what you'll be thinking. In Nigeria University today, it is one of the required course to students to learn about entrepreneurship. And I happen to be actually a director of entrepreneurship development in one of the universities. So I encourage you to look at that. That is where the future is, by creating something that can help to augment your salary, because your salary cannot sustain you anymore. Increment in salary in all the G7 is very minimum. So if you not start preparing yourself that even though you are working, you can do some other things that can help you to make extra money or solve some social problem. So you might not be sustaining yourself economically. So of course, we're talking sustainable development goals. So you need to think how you sustain yourself with your earning so that you will enjoy what it is. So the end of this expectation is about solidarity with the marginalized. Of course, you are very lucky because you live in a society where nobody disturbs you. In my country, as a student, if you want to protest against government action, they will send police to shoot you. And it's happened. Right, we're in democracy, but if you want to protest an increment in school fees, or that you are not having enough social amenities. So this is the way you should be praying and also finding a way to belong to international or NGO that promote human rights. So that those autocratic leaders in developing countries who are causing the social problem, because people are protesting because the government is not doing enough. And in Japan, I have not seen many people protesting. So can we clap for Japanese government? Clap. Can you clap? Oh, that's good. So in this, I will say that solidarity to the marginalized, you can only do that by being a part of NGO that's helping people in developing countries, or participating in some of the social activities in developing countries. And on this end, I will say that a much is expected of the young persons, and you here can make a difference. And on this, I will say thank you for listening. Of course, the conclusion is just about what we have done, but you can finish up.
もう、講義はすべて終えてしまった形になるんですけど、最後のパートのところをまとめてね、ちょっとメッセージだけお伝えしたいと思いますけど、最後、鬼先生が話されていたのは、若者の役割と道徳的責任ということですね。で鬼先生自身、20年か30年前ですね、このモラロジーにあって、ね、その当時というのは、なかなかね、人にこのモラロジーという話をしても、なかなか共感してもらえないという、こともありまして、で、一方でね、自分で勉強しながら、こういうアプローチがあるんだということを、すでにね、やっていった。そういった経験がある。それからして、世界のその、若者に対して、ぜひね、この、モラルジー、倫理というものを問いたいというふうに言っています。で、今、現在のその世界人口っていうのはやっぱり、若者が大半を占めていて、で特に大西先生ご出身のアフリカ、開発途上国ではその比率が多いと。で彼らは未来のエネルギーであって同時にこういう未来の倫理でもあるということで若者に期待しているということです。で、その中で特にですね、この道徳的な責務ということで、7つのことを大西先生がお伝えしています。1つ目がですね、スライドを動かして、ありがとうございます。倫理的リーダーシップと誠実性というところですね。これは透明性を実践する、説明責任を求める、信頼を築くというね、基本的な自分の周りの人間関係だけではなくて、社会とどうつながるかということを示されています。で、2つ目、スライド。こちらは、グローバルシティズンシップと、連帯ということですね。ソリダリティという言葉をおっしゃってましたけど、これはどういうことかというと、寛容性だったり尊重、共感、権利尊重などの、価値を受け入れるということですね。これは皆さんが、学生間とかね、親、家族、こういった方々と一緒にね、共存していく上で非常に大事な価値観だというふうにおっしゃられています。でその中で特にですね、この障害学習や、地球市民の教育、これに取り組むということが、皆さん自身のグローバルシティズンシップを育てることにつながりますということです。では、3つ目に行ってください。で気候と、環境の、スチュワードシップということですけども、ここは持続可能な消費習慣ですね。今、エシカルエコノミーとか、こういったワード、ね、いろいろなところで耳にすると思いますけども、こういったことに関してですね、消費習慣を最優するということですね。そして、気候政策を支持したり、でイノベーションで生態系を守るということをおっしゃられています。世代間の正義と道徳的責任、これを自覚することで、自分とか社会とか、そのさらに上の存在への責務ということが伝えられます。でここで鬼先生が皆さんに、ぜひやってくださいとおっしゃられてたのは、このね、緑豊かなキャンパス、特に学園側も含めてですけども、モラルジーというものにね、一度ちょっとね、触れてみてくださいということをおっしゃってました。こういった身近にこういう環境があるので、このモラロジーということを一つ触れて、自分自身と対話するですね、こういった大事さを説いてやればいいです。で続いて4つ目ですね、市民的関与と平和構築ということで、今ですね、世の中にはいろんな政治的な腐敗とか独裁とか、こういったことをニュースで耳にすると思いますけれども、こういった民主的な社会、こういう民主的な政治プロセスですね、皆さんなかなか政治には参加すると難しいかなと思うかもしれませんけど、積極的に参加してくださいと。で地球社会での対話を促進することが平和、法の支配、包括的制度の推進につながりますよ。で大西先生自身のご出身のアフリカでは300を超える部族がいて、でそれぞれが共存しているというふうにおっしゃられてました。でそこにはやはりこの地域社会間での対話、これがね、非常に大事だよということをおっしゃられています。じゃあ次行ってください。 そして今の時代、やはりですね、デジタル、ね、こういったものにね、やっぱり皆さん若いので関心があると思います。責任あるデジタル市民性ということですね。今、AI などを使った偽情報とか誤情報、たくさん世の中に溢れてますよね。こういったことに気をつけてください。それからデジタル権利、プライバシーの尊重、これももちろん皆さんも大事だと分かっていると思います。そして技術利用における倫理的な判断、これも今の時代は不可欠となるでしょう。で、6つ目ですね。この中でやはり、ね、起業とかそういったことを考えている方もいると思いますが、社会的起業と倫理的ビジネスということで、利益と目的、これを両立させた事業を創出することが大事。大西先生はお勤めの大学でですね、こういったアントレプレナーシップですね、起業家倫理とか、起業研修みたいな、こういったことをコースを担当されているそうです。で、労働、それからガバナンスにおいて、倫理を貫くと。で、若者の社会企業は道徳的関心、これを実践的、持続的な解決策に転換する主題ですね。で、若者こそがやっぱりこういったことをイニシアチブを取ってやってみてくださいということです。そして最後ですね、7番目です。で、社会的弱者と連帯ということですね。社会的弱者と語るときに、やはりね、皆さん自分自身が幸せだということを感じるかもしれません。女性、先住民、難民、障害者など、最も影響を受ける人々の声とリーダーシップ、これを優先してください。そして、誰一人取り残さない。これは SDGs の中で、長らく言われてきた、スローガンですけれども、これを実現するためには、道徳的な謙虚さと、実践的な連帯、これがやっぱり不可欠だということをおっしゃられていました。そして最後まとめですね。まとめ、結論ですけども、これはね、もう今まで言ってきたことの繰り返しです。SDGs というのは、世界的な正義、それから人間の尊厳、それから生態的均衡という、共有された倫理的ビジョンですね。これ、普遍的な、ユニバーサルな価値観と、そして道徳というものが、やっぱり相互にね、依存していて、そちらも大事だということです。そして、大西先生から最後の皆さんへのメッセージですけれども、混迷する世界において若者っていうのは、真実を語る者、橋を架ける者、地球管理者である。それを若者がそれぞれ担うことを期待しておりますということでした。
So, I've taken too much of your time, but the reality, what you are trying to establish and put into your mind is that sustainable development can only be possible with moral approach. And if moral approach is necessary, that we as human beings will drive those moral approach, moral actions that are needed to achieve sustainable development goal. And I establish it here that as a young person, that much is expected of you. And then, of course, we are going to have interaction. And during those interactions, you open your mind, because in the modern society, we need young people who can open their mind and express themselves. Because sometimes the adults cannot really understand your thinking except you say it out. So since you live in a society where there's a freedom of speech, freedom of expression, I want us, let's have interaction. And then, as usually, in every of my lecture, I always want to have a feedback. So because it's through those feedback that I will use to see how we can improve on this delivering this kind of lecture. Because every day we are looking for the opportunity to improve. And you can help me to improve by giving a feedback to this lecture. So on this note, I thank you for listening, and I hope during interaction we have opportunity to discuss more. Thank you very much. Thank you.
最後の部分を訳しますけれども、やっぱり倫理観を持って行動するっていうことが SDGs の達成には大事ですよということですね。やっぱり実践を大事にしてください。で、そのためにはやはり若いエネルギー、これが非常に大事ですね。そして私この授業で皆さんにいろんなヒントというかね、指針を出したつもりです。でそれに対する皆さんのフィードバックを、とても心待ちにしております。どうもありがとうございました。 今、鬼先生がフィードバック欲しいということだったんですけど、何か今日の講義について質問ある方いらっしゃいますか？ Any questions? 何でもいいです。講義の内容についてでも、鬼先生についてでも何かありますか？質問。Any questions? じゃあ。
I think that I have one question for you about is it fair to expect so much from the younger generation? How should we take into account the structural constraints they face, such as educational inequality, and lack of resource? What do you think about it?
So you are talking about how to deal with employment. Say again. Can you repeat, please?
Employment and educational inequality and lack of resource.
Okay. When I was talking about entrepreneurship, I was trying to bring to the attention of the young people that employment dimension is changing so fast. So there's what we call 21st century skills. And you can only gain 21st century skill by improving yourself. That has to do with, of course, intellectual IQ and EQ. There's a need to develop your emotional intelligence as well, so that the skills of the 21st century, not only about how to work, but how to relate, how to communicate, how to collaborate. These are some of the requirements for you to have a kind of a sustainable employment. So 21st century skills are necessary for you to progress to the next level of your life. Because if you keep on thinking that it is just graduate and go to get a job, we have cases where many people, they don't stay in one job right now because they get employed and soon they leave the job. But if you prepare yourself emotionally, you know that there are stages in life. If you got employment, you need time to get yourself acclimatized to that job so that you understand what is the job. Because 1 month, 2 months, 1 year is not enough. You just leave the job because you think you can get another job. So you need time to understand what you want as a person and also make a kind of a transition from your current employment to the next. So that transition, the only thing that can prepare you well is 21st century skills. I don't know if did I get your answer, or do you any other thing you want me to tell you?
Again, that's
Yeah, do you understand?
a little bit, but
So yeah, come up. You can go ahead. Let's talk. So tell me what you really want. Moto gambate. Gambate kudasai. Don't be shy. Is it okay? So employment. So for you to have a sustainable employment, it is a message for all of us. You have to prepare yourself for 21st century skills.
21世紀のスキルということで、やっぱりいろんなことに固執して一つのところに仕事をするっていう時代ではなくて、いろんなね、IQ とか EQ とかってキーワードをおっしゃられてましたけど、そういったことを身につけて仕事を変わっていくっていうこともまた一つのスキルということですけど、他に日本語でも何でもいいですよ。質問ありますか？ OK。
日本語で失礼します。若者がこれからはSDGs を担っ SDGs としてモラロジーなどを得て社会を担っていくという感じだったと思うんですけれど、その上で、私たち学生のうちに、得ておくべきモラロジーや、地球市民、なんだっけ、グローバルシティズンとしての知識で最も得ておくべきものは何ですか？
So she asked about what we should be know about as a global citizen in younger ages to know about to implement moralogy or to implement sustainable development goals. So what do you think the most important thing to know about to achieve moralogy in a younger generation, especially for the undergraduate students?
Okay. What I discovered when I started studying moralogy is that some people who are grandchildren of morologians, there's this kind of relationship that the grandfather, like some of the training or the lifelong learning, you have a great grandchild, child, and the parents studying together. So what it means is that lifelong learning, is of course is different from conventional learning, because in lifelong learning you are learning how to develop yourself, understand yourself, and then you'll be able to, because when I studied morality first, I was very conscious because as I was introduced, I was so much interested that what I can do to go back and make many people happy in Nigeria. And one of the sensei in Brazil said, no, forget about it. Make yourself happy first. Because if you're happy, that's the only way you can make others happy. So moralogy is about understanding yourself as a person, trying to there are 5 principles in moralogy which we study in that lifelonging. That's the one issue of reducing egoistic mind, then developing benevolence mind, and moral duty, which has to do contributing to the society, contributing to happiness of the people, and also environment is a part of moral duty. Then the issue of respect to autolinion, which is one of the key in moralogy. Respect to autolinion is, we live in a world where people don't regard their parents anymore, or they don't remember the efforts of their parents. Like in Japan, I have understood that Japanese people worked very hard to develop Japan society. And if young generation don't want to work hard, then the parents and those who work hard, they will not be happy, because there's a link. I don't know if it's religious or not, but that young people, the elderly people help the young person help the elderly people. So the generation help. So this respect autolinion, which is family autolinion, national autolinion, and spiritual autolinion, these are some of the key in the moralogy concept. So, and the 5th principle has to do with salvation, enlightenment. So enlightenment is what I'm here doing. I'm very happy that I have to share my experience with you. So if you keep doing these 5 principles in moralogy, then you can see that you are developing your moral character. And that's a concept I developed as a part of economic development. I call it moral capital. Because if you look at, if you want to economy, we only look about the economic capital, which is the indicators of economic capital. But moral capital is about you. And if you start developing it, yes, I don't know how to demonstrate, but you will see your life change. You will see your happiness increase. And you will transmit this to the society. It will make you to even be agent of sustainable development because you have seen that you have a part to play. You have to discover yourself now. You are now a global citizen, that you are not only Japanese, that you are a child of the globe, that you belong to the global society. And religiously apart, that you are working towards the universal goal. And what is universal goal? Universal goal is about how to live in a peaceful world where there is no war. So morality can contribute to improve your moral capital. And if your moral capital improve, like many of us, if our moral capital improve, then it is possible to achieve sustainable development goal.
モラルジーには5つの原理がありまして、そのうちの2つ、そのエゴイスティックな自分の自我というものを減らし、他者への利益を供与するという、この感情は一つとても大事なことだと思います。そして、ライフロングリネージ、その自分の生涯のつながりということですね。これを大事にしてほしいということでした。そして、皆さんの近い存在として、両親への感謝だったり、そういった日本を発展させたということに関して、またですね、感謝というものを大事だというふうに思います。それで一番強調したいところは、やっぱりモラルキャピタルですね。道徳的な資本というふうに訳せますかね。モラルキャピタル。これがやっぱり若いうちに非常に大事になってくるんじゃないでしょうかということでした。にありますか？何か。じゃあ、後ろから行こうか。いいです。回してもらって。そこの列の後ろ。
Thank you for your wonderful speech. And I have a question that is sometimes fake news, like the false information and hurtful message spread on social media. And I want to ask, how much responsibility do you think social media companies should take for these programs? And how can we, as users, share the responsibilities?
Yes, I think one of the expectation has to do with digital misinformation, because who contribute to digital misinformation? It is you and I. So who contribute to fake news? It is you and I. So if we, as a citizen of the world, stop circulating information that's not authentic, information that we don't know whether it is right or wrong, that will reduce misinformation. So it becomes a moral obligation that we control what we circulate. It becomes moral obligation on us, because why you cannot hold the companies responsible? Because they want to make money and they want traffic. So to them, it's not a problem. So now it becomes a moral obligation of individual not to do it. So like myself, I hardly circulate any information that I think can cause a problem or panic to other people. So if you can behave this way, then you are now fulfilling your own moral obligation. Then those industries, information company, technology, who are promoting this kind of thing, I know in so many countries of the world, there are so many policies that is trying to counter all this promoter of misinformation, or those trying to manipulate information age. Because it's just as I said earlier, there's need for us to control what we are doing You know, like some people now, they are causing misinformation, right? Some individual here. So it's not a good character that we are here talking about something serious and someone is sending a different information. And you are now trying to other individual, they cannot listen. So what I think is that a moral obligation is an individual thing. And that is the only thing you can control. Other things, you cannot control other people. So what I mean is moral obligation to not participate in dissemination of misinformation.
質問は、フェイクニュースなど、最近溢れてますけども、その責任っていうのは、それを流す人に責任があるのか、それとも、そういう、ことをプラットフォームを提供している会社とか、そういったことに責任があるのかという質問でした。で、大西先生の答えとしては、モラルオブリゲーション、ね、道徳的な責任というのは、やはりその個人の中にあるということでしたね。やっぱりその個人としてやはりこういうの一回情報を聞くと、パニックになったりする場合もあると思うんですけど、やっぱりそれを伝染させないこと、つまり他者に伝えてパニックを伝染させてしまうと、そういうことがないように、自分の中でそうですね、このモラルオブリゲーション、道徳的な責任ということが一つキーになってくるんじゃないでしょうかということでした。じゃあ、質問最後取りますけども、時間もそろそろなんで、なんか一つどうでしょうか。2つ。じゃあ、これ2つまとめて、で、最後でいいかな。じゃあ。Question? So please take two questions and you answer both for the first round. Okay.
First of all, thank you for your speech. And I want to ask that when we think about SDG program, recently I realized there is no answer. So we keep thinking and doing active. So it's my opinion. What do you think? Okay.
So what he's saying is that. So you're talking about, just say it again, please.
もうちょっとなんかクリアにちょっとできますか。
Okay, when I think about SDGs problem, recently I think there is no answer. The one answer we have to think about and doing some action. Keep again. So what do you think this opinion?
Okay.
Yeah.
So this second person.
Okay, well, thank you for today's excellent lecture. Yeah, in the world, morality often fail to gain understanding because some leaders of country prioritize making money. Yeah, but money is important to live. So how should we balance morality and making money? Thank you.
Thank you. Here, in some of the questions raised here, my response one is about moral capital. The second one is about moral obligation. So the answer to your question is about moral reasoning. So how can you reason morally? Because it has to do with learning, training, practical. So if you start practicing how to reason morally, you can find answer to some of the questions, one of the challenges you have. For instance, why many of us is having challenge about the words is because we have our moral reasoning is not enough. Because if you too selfish-centered, if you're just thinking about yourself and not thinking about that someone else, for instance, as I say, you live in Japan and it's a society where everything is so easy. If you need a job, you get a job. If you need part-time job, you get it. So you can eat. So then someone somewhere doesn't have such opportunity. So you now start appreciating who you are and what you are. So in the moral reasoning is about behavior and attitude. Behavior is the outcome of your attitude. So behavior, when you talk of mental attitude, how do you think? How do you reason? How do you know what is good or bad? So moral reasoning is very important. And you can only achieve moral reasoning by training. If you start participating in some of those, when I talk about lifelong learning activities, those that will help you to reflect, that will help you to think deeply, you now discover that it has become easier for you to know when to take action. So it is about attitudes, thinking, action, behavior. So most of the behavior people have today is from that they think of it first. So that's why for you to know if you are thinking is right or wrong, it is by training your mind. So training of mind is very necessary, not just about passing exam. So you have to do some of those things that can help you to reason very well. So that was a moral reasoning. And the same thing is applicable to what the next person asking. So I don't think I get please, can you repeat once again, please?
Yeah, in the world, morality often fail to gain understanding. For example, some leaders of countries prioritize making money, but yes, money is important to lives. So how should we balance these two, morality and making money, economy?
Okay, thank you. You have now come to my domain. I'm an economist. And for some years right now, I'm studying morality and economy because this is a missing link when we think about economic growth and development. So economic growth is all about making money. It's all about growing the economy of the country. It's all about, even in individual basis, it's about acquiring wealth, becoming rich. But studies have shown that becoming rich cannot make you happy. So you need some other things. So you have to balance material and spiritual life. So that is, material life is about economy, spiritual life is about morality. So it is becoming a emerging issue in economic or in a business discussion right now, the ethical management. So some countries where the leaders, they only think about, for instance, in Africa, the challenge of Africa, let me just tell you one thing. African countries, not Africa as a whole, every country in Africa is reasonably rich in the economic terms because we have natural resources that can be exported to international markets and make money. But because of this, the attitude and behaviors of the leaders, so some of the leaders, because they rely on the colonial masters, because Africa, for so many decades, passed into colonialism, whereby, like my country, Nigeria, was colonized by Britain. So some of the leaders, they still have attachment to the British masters. So what they do is that if they become a government official and they get money, they will take that money and go and bank in British bank. So instead of using that money to develop your country, they use it with their masters because these individuals, they're all about money. They don't care about when we talk about sustainability. They don't care about when we talk about human global cities. They really think about making money. So, but for you to be successful and happy, you have to think how to balance economic life and spiritual life.
2つ質問があって、1つ目はですね、SDGs とか、行動が大事だというふうに先生はおっしゃられましたけど、実際にどういうふうに行動したらいいか、とても悩ましいと。それについてどういうふうにお考えかということで、大西先生から2つキーワードが出てきました。で、モラルキャピタルとモラルオブリゲーション。1つは道徳的な資本、もう1つは道徳的な義務ということですかね。で、これ2つというのは、何を決めるかというと、その人の行動と態度、これを決めますと。で、こういったことを準備しておくことが次にアクションを取りやすくするということをおっしゃってました。で、2つ目の質問は、道徳とお金を稼ぐこと、これをどういうふうに考えたらいいか、両立したらいいかという質問でした。で、鬼先生は経済学者なので、経済学者としての立場からおっしゃるというと、道徳的、経済的、これともに両立はできるんじゃないか。一つは経済的に豊かになるということは、お金持ちになる、富を増やすということで、これ自身は物質的な豊かさだと。で、一方で道徳というのはスピリチュアル、精神的な豊かさだから、これっていうのはモラリティ、道徳っていうことを追求することでできる。ただね、アフリカということの事例を引っ張ってくると、アフリカっていうのは実はどの国も独立したての頃は天然資源があって豊かになる可能性があった。ね、リッチになる権利があった。しかしながら、いくつかの国の指導者というのは、旧宗主国ですね、ナイジェリアだったらイギリスとか、そういった国々と、やっぱりつながりを保ち続けた。で、彼らっていうのは自分たち自身が豊かになることを選択して、国に、富を蓄積してこなかった。こういったことでお金を稼ぐということに、彼ら自身が国を使って、これによって貧困というのがまだ続いているというようなお答えでした。はい。そう。
Thank you.
たくさん質問ありがとうございました。私の不手際でちょっとね、時間が最後なくなっちゃったんですけど、今回、大西先生は3回目ということですけど、こうやってね、道徳と経済を超えて、人口問題だけじゃなくて、さまざまな皆さんの普段の生活に関わるアイデアというかね、そういった指針を示してくださったということで、とても貴重な機会だったと思います。じゃあ最後に、皆さんで大西先生に拍手をして終わりたいと思います。今日はどうもありがとうございました。Thank you very much for lecture today.
はい、鬼西先生どうもありがとうございました。それでは今日の授業はこれで終了となります。課題の方はですね、クラスルームに挙げてありますが、来週の木曜日までに本日の特別講義の感想、質問、意見と記入してください。よろしくお願いします。すべて鬼西先生にお届けする予定ですので、そのつもりで書いてもらえればと思います。はい、それではどうもお疲れ様でした。これで終わりです。ありがとうございました。